In this lecture, let's dive into one of the most fundamental concepts in Python, variables. Understanding variables is essential because they are the building blocks of any programming language. They allow us to store, manipulate, and retrieve data. So what exactly is a variable? A variable is like a container that holds data values. Think of it as a label that you can attach to any data you want to use in your program. The purpose of variables is to make it easier to manipulate and retrieve data without having to deal with the data directly every time. Next, let's talk about naming conventions. Naming your variables properly is crucial for writing clean and understandable code. Here are some basic rules. Number 1. Use descriptive names that convey the purpose of the variable. Number 2. Variable names must start with a letter or an underscore and not a number. Number 3. They can contain letters, numbers, and underscores but cannot have spaces. Number 4. Variable names are case-sensitive, meaning radius and radius would be considered different variables. Now let's move on to how we can assign values to these variables. Assigning values to variables in Python is straightforward. We use the equal sign to assign a value to a variable. For example, temperature equals 25. With this, we've created a variable named temperature and assigned it the value 25. Now, whenever we use temperature in our code, it will refer to the value 25. Let's see this in action with an example. I create a new file and name it variables.py. In the file, I declare a variable speed and assign it the value 60. In the second line, I use the speed variable to calculate distance. I multiply speed by 2 and store the result in a new variable called distance. Then I print the value of distance, which will be 120. Finally, I change the value of speed to 80. Now, whenever I use speed, it will refer to 80. For running, in the terminal, type python variables.py. It will print the value of distance, which is 120, as well as the last updated value of speed being 80. So we've covered what variables are, their purpose, naming conventions, and how to assign and use them in Python. Remember, variables are fundamental to making your code flexible and manageable. Next, we'll dive into data types, which will help us understand what kind of data we can store in these variables. Stay tuned.